Hello and welcome to the Power of Passive Investing. We have a very interesting guest and someone I've gotten to know better in the last several months, Adam Gregg. Craig, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Adam, welcome. Excited to have you here.
Thank you. I really appreciate having me on again.
Thank you for being here, Adam. We always start by asking our interviewees by sharing a little bit about their background and their expertise and track record. So please share with us what you've been up to until now.
Ended up going to school for finance and had the full financial analyst or salesperson, career thought out. But shortly after college, I started a online business. I won't go into all the details of it, but it got me enough income to kind of do my dream, which I knew was going to be real estate. The internet business was great, but unlike real estate, which is basically forever, a lot of outside factors can come into play with a lot of the competition. Primarily, I was selling on Amazon. So I knew if I wanted to work for myself and continue to work for myself, I had to find an alternative other than the internet business. And I knew that was real estate. So it didn't take more than 2 or 3 years after college. I closed on my first single family home and I was kind of off and running. I would say within 2 or 3 years of my first purchase, I really started to pick things up. I discovered the BRRRR strategy, which is the buy, rehab, rent, refinance. From there, I found a lot of hard money lenders. So I went from doing a couple deals a year to maybe 10 to 12, fix and flips and rentals. So for about 4 or 5 years, I was running around crazy, like a chicken with his head cut off, as they say. Probably in hindsight, a little too crazy, a little bit over leveraged. But 2015, 16 were considerably different times than they are now. So being over leveraged didn't kill me like it may have today, fortunately enough. It was 2019. I had ambitions of buying maybe 100 single family homes and then getting apartment buildings. I had my first child. So my home work life went from very peaceful to very disruptive overnight. So in efforts to look for a place outside the house to work, I discovered a little office building. And then instead of renting office space, I ended up buying this building. And that was basically what set me off into commercial real estate. Never thought I would be doing office and retail, but after I purchased that building, my residential investments came to an end, and I am full blown non residential commercial now. About 11 buildings is in the portfolio right now.
Wow, awesome. That's really impressive. So once you bought your first building, Adam, you never looked back, never bought another single family after that?
I think I purchased two single families after I closed on my first commercial building, but simultaneously the market was starting to go haywire. So I didn't necessarily pivot because of the market, but timing was good because I went from being able to find single family deals everywhere to how competitive it's been over the past 5 or so years.
Excellent. So let's dive a little bit more to your switch from residential to commercial. You were doing well with residential, very busy, of course, working around the clock, of course, but then uh, building family required more time, and then you also saw the potential after buying your first building. So let's talk a little bit more about what did you see after that commercial purchase that made you decide to continue buying more office buildings?
So the first building I bought is actually the one I'm sitting in right now. It's about a 5,000 square foot historic building, kind of residential that converted into an office many years ago. I didn't, really know what I was going to do with it. I didn't know if I had a single tenant building or a multi-tenant building. So I kind of, just threw spaghetti and saw what stuck. But unfortunately, probably about 3 months after I bought it, COVID started. So that was quite a shock. But it passed 3 months after the really crazy part of COVID. People started, resuming normalcy again. I was able to fill the building up, during some pretty difficult times. Probably not at good rates, but I was being pretty generous during those times because of worldwide pandemic. But after I had it full, I looked at the cash flow and I said, man, maybe I can do this again. So I contacted my bank. I got a valuation on the building, and it was then I realized like how valuations work on commercial real estate, which is not at all what it was on the single family side. So that always intrigued me, being to do the forced value thing. So after I saw the numbers on that deal, I just kept going with it, a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger, and we're going to close on our 12th building hopefully next month.
Amazing. Congratulations and good luck with that 12th purchase. That's an interesting transformation and in such a short period of time. And in a matter of just 4 to 5 years, you were able to acquire 11, and now 12 building is coming up. And I like how you said that you've always been going bigger. So not only that you're thinking outside of the box, by first starting working and building your online company and thinking about real estate at that point, which kudos for you, because most um, young people don't think about real estate or their future or even potentially buying properties at that point. But you also had a vision of building it, and you continue building it and expanding your portfolio and buying something bigger every time. So kudos on doing that. After buying 11 office buildings, what would you say are some of the tougher challenges? And maybe you can take us through one of the examples of what are some of the harder challenges that you've gone in these purchases.
Yeah, so I always say that I buy office buildings, but technically anything commercial I'll take a look at. We have retail buildings. I have a small warehouse building. Office buildings just have been on sale for obvious reasons, and we tend to buy what's on sale. So a lot of combination office retail buildings are in our portfolio. I would say, it was a lot, just like anything. The learning curve early on was pretty steep. Made a lot of mistakes, but I'm buying buildings at pennies on the dollar that are not performing very well. So just like in residential, if you buy a bigger project, the bigger rewards at the end, but it leaves some room for more mistakes compared to buying it at the top. If you buy a building fully occupied with a nice rent roll, there's not a lot of room to go up, but plenty of room to go down. And I picked up a lot of buildings from owners where that situation happened exactly as I said. So just have to be careful on the buy side, but rehabbing these buildings has been a learning curve. What we started doing probably about 4 or 5 buildings ago is implementing, I guess you would consider them salon lofts. Previously, we had not designed the building to attract any specific tenant, but as we started leasing more and more space, we had endless calls for salons, and they didn't all have plumbing. So it became expensive to try to do that. So, going forward, we started adding plumbing for just to give you an example. We have a 30,000 square foot office building that was about half occupied. It had a 2,500 square foot dentist office with a bunch of dentist stations and stands. We put it on the market for about 2 or 3 months. Not a single dentist called. I spoke with dentists who talk about wanting standalone buildings as opposed to these multi-tenant situations. So we after thinking I was going to blow it out and make it creative office space, we actually used all the plumbing, got rid of all the dental stands, and then we closed off all the doors so that each room was basically a salon loft. So we didn't have to spend a fortune on the plumbing, which would have cost in excess of probably $20,000 because it was all there. So rather than bringing in about 2,200 a month on that unit, we're bringing in closer to 3,500, and it could be 4,000
Wow.
before it's all said and done. The drawbacks, I guess I would say, is instead of having one dentist tenant, we have maybe 4 to 5 cosmetology tenants. Does come with more management, more turnover, things of that sort. But we have a full space, and we're getting more money for it. So.
Amazing. Love it. Adam, when you were purchasing your first property, your first commercial property, I'm sorry, you said you didn't really have much vision for it, but you are using it now yourself and you have tenanted. Um, what's happening with, or what's been happening with your other properties moving forward when you're buying it? Do you have a vision for the property, or do you first see that it's deeply discounted and you want to buy it and then decide what to do?
I think the vision comes second. The numbers don't lie, and if I know base rent is around $12 a year, and I can run my numbers, and there's a lot of value add, I'll buy the building regardless of my vision for it for the most part. But yeah, like the building I was referring to, we kind of stumbled into that idea. It wasn't ever part of the plan, but sometimes through a little trial and error, you see what works and what doesn't, and make adjustments accordingly.
Got it. Love it. In terms of the territory, where are you buying geographically? Is it in your backyard or are you going too far out? from where you live?
So I'm here in Cleveland. I don't own anything in Cleveland proper. Not to say I wouldn't buy anything in Cleveland proper, but I'm mostly in the suburbs. I would say within an hour drive of me, which takes me, about 40 minutes east or west of Cleveland in any direction. So for right now, I've been able to find deals in basically my backyard.
Amazing. And would you say at this point there are plenty of deals, or is it much harder to find them these days?
I wouldn't say deals are abundant, but one of the nicer things in the commercial real estate, especially as you get bigger buildings, is the economies of scale. I went from buying 10 to 12 single family homes a year to buying maybe two buildings a year, and I would say the two buildings a year are probably less work, definitely less work than the 12 single family homes. So you don't need as much to stay busy, and the numbers can get big in a hurry with economies of scale. So I think right now, if I go to LoopNet or Crexy, I might have 7 or 8 properties that I have saved. Of those, maybe one or two might be worth looking at further. So I buy what Ash used to call unicorn deals. They don't come around that often, but I've been able to snag at least two a year for the better part of 5 years.
Got it. Love it. And with these properties that, as you mentioned, they're very discounted, how do you find them? Like for someone who's looking to get into this deeply discounted purchases, what would you
So
recommend
it
to
took
them?
me a while to be able to actually browse and find anything that made sense. And if you go on LoopNet or Crexy, 90% of it doesn't make sense. But I would say set your criteria, your geographic location, go through. For me, it's roughly 200 to 300 properties that come up. Of those, I have maybe 10 that I save for favorites, and then I look a little harder at the rest. And if you're looking broadly, I would say look at the price and look at the square footage. And that's the kind of very dense look at it. And after you do enough of these, you start to realize what price per square foot makes sense in certain areas, and it becomes a little easier to spot a deal.
Got it. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And after buying so many properties, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges and how did you overcome
We've run into some very difficult challenges with city, a big not a stepping stone, a big learning curve from residential to commercial is a lot of the fire codes, a lot of the zoning issues. I don't have a ton of big corporate tenants or manufacturing tenants. So a lot of my businesses, it's real straightforward. There's no issues. But we have an event center that it was very difficult to get them approved through the city. We had to do variances, sit through a board meeting. And then after all that, we did a large build out for her. She was ready to open up shop, and the fire department comes in and they said, "Oh, we didn't realize this was a non-sprinklered building. You're over 5,000 square feet. Ordinance says you need to have a sprinkler system." And we say, "Okay, well, let's get a quote on a sprinkler system." So, we got a quote, and it came in at about $70,000. And the kicker was it's a 4-story building. The ordinance says you can't just do one floor, you have to do all 4 floors. So $300,000 they wanted in order to get a sprinkler system. And the rent for this specific tenant was about $5,000 a month. So in no world did that ever make sense. We're right now at the kind of scratching our heads as to what we're going to do in that situation. I would say, yeah, it's rare, but those things come up.
Got it. So in a situation like this, you would continue looking for an alternative solution, essentially.
So she is right now capped at 100 people versus the 200 or 250 that she needs. So we may renegotiate her lease if she's willing to do it at a limited occupancy. But yeah, we're kind of still up in the air on that one. But most of the leases are straightforward. It's mom and pops, barbers, tattoo artists, things like that, and we don't run into those types of issues. But when the occupancy load gets very high, a lot of those issues come in.
Got it. Adam, you're very driven, and we've talked about this before, how you always work and very efficient and effective with the work you do. Where do you see Adam 5, 10 years down the road? What do you think you'll be doing?
I'd like to say I know what that might be with some certainty, but had I gauged 5 years prior to me buying my first commercial building, I would have been way off. But I would estimate that I'm going to continue to do the commercial real estate. I don't ever see myself buying residential real estate anymore, even if it's apartment buildings. I guess if the residential market were to crash, you can never say never. But yeah, I have a pretty good team in place, and as I continue to grow, I want to continue to delegate more and more into systems because I'm only 37, but as my kids are getting older, having more time to spend with them is important. So the more I delegate away, the better. And my wife, she gets skittish every time I have a building under contract. She always thinks it's too much, but I'm half as busy as I was in 2016, 2017 when I was doing residential. So I'm in a real good spot in terms of having systems in place.
Amazing. I love it. And I know your kids are still young, but do you envision teaching them real estate, sharing with them what you do eventually when they get older?
I hope so. I've since they were little, I've taken them on little jobs here and there. We go put a bucket under a leak just to kind of give them an idea what we do, and I teach them. They're only 8 and 6, so it's a very hard concept to
Yeah.
grasp. Especially if it was renting a house, it would be one thing, but the office stuff is even more confusing. But I hope so, and if they don't, I have no problem with that. I feel the same with sports as I do about their career. Do whatever they have a passion for, and it doesn't have to be dad's work.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't have to be dad's work, but what can be better than teaching kids from real life experience, especially when they can see what that experience can translate into? And I'm talking about generational wealth that can be passed from one generation to another, where uh, when you acquire property, they require a lot of heavy lifting. So you literally have to roll up your sleeves and do all the dirty work up front. But then it just continues to cash flow, and all it needs is management and maybe some maintenance down the road, whether it's changing the plumbing and changing the roof and so forth. But that is absolutely incredible. And passing that, not just the money, but the actual experience and the learnings that you get from it to your kids could be priceless, because I found the hard way that public schools don't teach that kids. The kids don't know much about real life experience and how to approach life. Even after getting associates or even bachelor and master's degree, kids still don't know how to live their lives properly. So teaching this could be absolutely priceless to your kids. Um, so on that note, I really like how you said that you try to delegate more and build the teams. Are you continuing to build your team, or would you say you're pretty much set on all the team members at this point?
My team is good right now, but we manage maybe 150 or so tenants. As we get over 200 and 250, I may not need to hire anyone else. I might just extend the hours of the people who are currently working for me part time. So, I started off in this business in 2013 with a property management company. They managed my properties for 3 or 4 years. I thought, I need to concentrate on this internet business. Everyone told me real estate was passive, so why should I be managing real estate? It wasn't until I started self-managing that I realized how bad of a job they were doing and how bad of a job most management companies do. It's not necessarily their fault. A lot of these people are paid very low amounts of money to fill very small units, and the incentives aren't just there. But I took what good things from that company I liked, and then I kind of implemented them with some of my own, and we continue to change things every year. But I think we do. That's one of our biggest advantages is filling properties. There's properties that sit next to ours that are vacant for more than a year, and we're filling ours because they have a property manager that doesn't pick up the phone. So.
Got it. Amazing. What would you say your secret sauce besides your property manager speaking of the phone?
Well, the secret sauce for leasing, well, first of all, buying low, rehabbing a property, and offering for rent is a little bit unique in its own. A lot of landlords are turning over basically white boxes or not tenant ready units to their tenants, so they don't attract people quite as easily. But we're able to make them look really nice and the whole building look really nice. From the start, so that's helpful. Facebook is another secret. We do most of our leasing through Facebook Marketplace. Crexy and LoopNet account for, I would estimate, 10% of our tenants, and Facebook is the remaining. Again,
Wow.
keep in mind, we don't have big corporate tenants or anything like that. We have a lot of small businesses. So they're on Facebook. I would argue if you had corporate tenants, you probably wouldn't find any of them on there, and you need to be on LoopNet and Crexy.
Most likely. Adam, you mentioned that most of your properties are outside of Cleveland proper, but still within driving distance to you. Would you see yourself going to other markets?
As of right now, I would say no. A lot of advantages of Cleveland is affordability, and a lot of other markets are, it's much more difficult to. You can get the same return in Cleveland as you could in another market, but possibly at half the investment cost or less. So for right now, Cleveland's been okay. But again, 5 years prior to the investment, I didn't know what I was planning on doing. So you can never say never.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Love it. Thank you so much. The interview has been absolutely amazing. At the end of the interview, we usually like to ask our audience two personal questions. First one is, for anyone who wants to reach out to you, can they find you on social media, or is there another way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's cleinvest.com. I'm also on Instagram as Adam the Investor. You can get all my contact info from either of those two options.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the last question that we always ask our audience is, how do you like to give back?
I like to give back right now through knowledge. I have my mom barking up my tree about philanthropy and things of that nature, and I tell her I am going to get there. That's when I have buco bucks. But for right now, it's knowledge. I connect with any real estate investor, new or old. I've never had classes or anything like that. I'm not trying to charge. I get together with a cup of coffee with anyone, and I just love chatting real estate. So that's how I like to give back for prospect investors who like to get going in this business.
And I love that. And folks, for anyone who wants to reach out to Adam, I am guaranteeing you from personal experience that Adam is an absolute wealth of knowledge and very giving and open and has a lot of creativity and a lot of great experience that he is open and willing to share with others. So,
Well,
Adam,
thank
thank you
you.
so much for that. And thanks for the amazing interview. Thank you,
Oh, it was a
everyone.
pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.